Welcome to another edition of the Up and Down from EliteSportsBetting.com. I'm your host, Fried Egg Paulie, here with Frank once again. Frank, how's it going?
Good, man. Interesting week last week. Kind of what we thought of Torrey Pines, where the top guys all end up at the top somewhere, and whoever puts on Sunday wins, right? And he had a nice win there. Tiger, I think he was finished T9 or something. Rory up there, Rahm up there. So all the horses are up there, and you sniped off a winner there.
Yeah, it was a pretty good weekend. He had one of those rare cases where at the turn on Sunday with 9 holes left, I think I had at one point I had to hit the top 3 guys in the leaderboard, which pretty much never happens. I mean, and they weren't leading when the day started, right? At Leishman, Snedeker, Watson, where they were like 13 under, 11 under, 10 under at one point, 1, 2, 3, and I'm sitting there. Well, those are three of the guys I bet this week, and they're leading. So I'm like, how can this go wrong, right?
Should we talk about Rahm? I was absolutely shocked to see. I thought after Saturday it was over. I mean, he just fell apart. He got the hooks and just fell apart.
He's done that before. He did it at the Players' Championship. Remember that? When he blew up, right, and then kind of rallied back. So, I mean.
What's kind of interesting is he was having a lot of success, overseas in the Euro Tour events, those paid appearances against weak fields. And, it just seemed like maybe I hate to make too much of one round, but it was just shocking to see him just melt apart. And then as soon as the pressure was off, it was like birdie, birdie, birdie to finish. And I couldn't believe it. To start that round, I'm sitting there like, holy hell, everyone's got a chance, and I thought he would be 2 under through 3 and be, on his way to winning.
Yeah, he's just got to kind of just get out of his own way, and when he does, he plays extremely well. But once he kind of thinks about it or gets mad a little bit, you get a little bit of a snowball effect, and all of a sudden, boom, you're 3 or 4 over, and then you're like, whoa, screw it. And then he goes on a birdie run and gets right back in it, right?
Yeah, it was interesting listening to Faldo, too. Not that I put a whole lot of stock in swing analysis from a lot of these guys, but it was interesting with Rahm's quick, short kind of swing. He kind of looked like he was getting a little quicker with the arms and was just across the body, and everything was just going left. It was like a little bit tight with that swing. It just seems like that's a recipe for kind of missing left when you tighten up a little bit. And then once he was 4 strokes back, he frees up a little bit and can swing it some more.
Yeah, but he's got a chance to right the ship this week. He's heading to kind of a hometown event here. Since he went to ASU, they're playing this week the Waste Management Phoenix Open, the TPC Scottsdale over there. So this is kind of known as Party Central in terms of the golf event because of the 16th hole there, with the stadium, amphitheater, and everything. But it's usually one of the best events to watch on TV because the last 4 holes, someone could be 5 down and rail in with a tournament. Because 15th hole is a reachable par 5 with water. 16, you got the short par 3. It's kind of like a birdie bogey hole possible with all the crowd in there. And you got a drivable 17th, which could be, anywhere from eagle to bogey. And then 18 is another hole with water and a tough green, where we've seen guys make birdies to get in playoffs. We've seen guys make bogeys to lose the event. So
it's a really boom or bust finish. We saw Brooks make huge comeback here in 2015. Woodland chased down Reavie on the last day. He was 7 back.
Yep.
I remember kept betting on Woodland 2 years ago, and he finally won. I was just one of those guys you bet that doesn't have any win equity, and then he finally wins from 8 down at this tournament. Even Ricky last year, he had a huge lead and shot 74 on the last day, and almost blew it to Brendan Grace, made a run at him.
Yeah.
So it kind of an interesting course where you're never really out of it. If you're within 6, 7 strokes, you can finish strong and make a run onto anybody. I saw a lot of guys talking about on Twitter and stuff talking about how big names win here, but Brooks won in 2015. I wouldn't say he was a big name then. Hideki won in 2016, which, okay, he was known, but I wouldn't say that he was a top X golfer in the world at that point. 2017, he won again. So yeah, he was better in 2017 for sure. Woodland in 2018. That was his first win in however long. Was it his first? I don't know, but he hadn't really had any win equity up until then. And same thing with Fowler last year. Yeah, Fowler's probably one of the better known guys, but he had took a historic putting 4 days for him to win, and he still almost blew it. So it's like big names now that we look back, but I'm not so sure that coming in, those guys were all the big names.
The Hideki wins were definitely big names because, like, 2017, Hideki was the second highest ranked player in the field in terms of, like, official, like, world golf ranking. And then
What about 16?
16, I think he was, like, the 7th or 6th
Okay.
highest ranked player. I mean, like, and, like, odds-wise, he was low. I mean, he was 25 to 1 in 2016 and 10 to 1 in 2017.
Okay, yeah. So
and then when Brooks won, he was probably looking like he's about maybe 25th or 30th in the field in terms of world ranking, but he was only 40 to 1 to win.
Yeah, so
it wasn't like a long shot winner.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like a couple weeks ago where we're taking, these guys that are 200 to 1.
No.
But it's certainly not. I wouldn't call it a front runners course like Torrey Pines is, right? Like not like last week. Where
honestly, this course is very similar to Torrey Pines in terms of the results and players that have played well here in the past.
Yeah, I just mean that the winning kind of lends itself to be a little more random. Where guys, maybe worse golfers can play further up to the top. Like Ches Reeves had a lot of success here. It's. Would you call it a bomber's course? I mean, I wouldn't actually.
No, it's not a bomber's course, but I think it's very similar to Torrey in the fact that, like, the winners here have been solid winners for the most part. And you've had a lot of guys come close, just like you had at Torrey, right? You've had Brian Palmer come close and stuff like that. And here you've had, like, Ches Reeves come close, losing a playoff. So, like, in that respect, you've had the better players, like, end up winning here, right? I mean, when you go down the list, like, it's similar to Torrey, right? In terms of the quality of winners, right? Fowler, Woodland, Matsuyama, Koepka, right? Over the last, like, 5 years. That's similar to the pedigree that you've seen at Torrey. So I kind of disagree with you a little bit there.
Yeah, I'm just saying that, I obviously better players win better at courses in general, right? Like we would expect to see the better players at the top. I guess my point is that I wouldn't necessarily have a standard golfer of like this guy bombs it off the tee, or does X, Y, and Z. It seems a little more random. Is a lot of different skills can succeed at these courses, right?
Yeah. So in terms of like the skill set for this course, it's fairly simple for me. You're gonna have a very large number of approach shots from 125 to 175, and that's just the way the course is set up. There's a lot of holes where you necessarily don't want to hit driver, but it gets a little narrower in certain spots, or the way the length of the hole is. You're just going to be in that zone a lot of time because the holes are 460 yards long, and you get a driver, and there you are sitting at 150, right?
Yep.
So the guys who are able to hit those iron shots, giving them the best chance to win or best chance to make putts, is going to be able to succeed. Like that's how Matsuyama always played good here. Matsuyama was never the best player off the tee. He hit the ball good off the tee, kept it in play, but he was like dialed in with his irons and kept hitting it inside 15 feet, and voila. He had an okay putting week, and there you go. He wins twice here.
And the things that popped on my model for this course, from a course fit perspective, is driving accuracy, first and foremost, and second was medium approach shots. So, and you're going to see that definitely going to see that in my picks this week, and then you're just kind of hoping that the putts go down on the weekend, right?
Yep. So that being said, who's your first player you chose this week off the board?
Yeah. So I tend to stay away from the top of the board. Unfortunately, the model really likes Webb Simpson this week. It's his recent play is so absurd, and I don't want to bet him at 14 to 1, but that's the best number I can find. And like I said, my model still likes him there, closer to 10 to 1. This course, I think, fits him. He's an accurate driver of the ball, not overly long whatsoever, but he's still gaining strokes off the tee. Second best iron player in this field and fourth best putter in this field. If you look at his recent performance, so far this year, he's gaining 1.3 strokes on approach, almost an entire stroke putting per round. And his finishes this year, T7, solo second, T10, and a third at the Sony. He's played well pretty much everywhere. To finish the year, he had 2 seconds in his last 5 events. I'm going to feel like an idiot when he doesn't win at 14 to 1 and he finishes top 5 again. But I'm gonna feel like a bigger idiot if I don't play him, knowing that he's been playing so well recently.
Yeah, I can understand that one. Webb's game does fit this course pretty well. Just a matter of is the win equity high enough in the field based on these players, and that's the real question to answer this.
Yeah, I was hoping that he would be closer to 20-1. But like you said, the model still likes him from a combination of recent play and the course. I just think it fits him. Are you liking or fading anyone in this top bit? Rahm, Thomas, Simpson, Matsuyama, Fowler, Schauffele?
Yeah, I'm playing Matsuyama up there. So I believe it or not, I'm only betting 3 players this week to win, and most of them not necessarily near the top of the board, but definitely in the upper half. And the first one's Matsuyama at 16-1. So he's a 2-time winner here. So he's played the event 6 times. He's finished 4th, 2nd, 1st, withdrew due to injury, and 15th. So obviously you can tell he likes the course. It just suits him well, as we kind of talked about, right? It's the reliance on that, short to mid iron range, and that's where he just makes his,
very solid wedge game, yeah,
right? It's gonna be one of those where like I'll be utterly surprised if Matsuyama isn't, in the top 15 heading into Sunday, and he's a guy who can go out and shoot 8, 9 under on a course and win the event, right? So that's the kind of the key for me to having Matsuyama this week is I'm not worried about him, throwing a dud this week. If he for somehow misses the cut or finishes 40th, I would be utterly surprised. And we saw him, kind of have a good game in the fall there where he, almost won the CJ Cup in Zozo. I think he was 3rd and 2nd in those 2 events and kind of played decent to start the year. He played, I think, 12th at Sony Open, and then I think he played last week at the Farmers, but he hasn't played great there in the past. So, and we've seen guys win here at the Waste Management after playing like complete crap the week before. So I'm not necessarily putting much into his 45th place finish last week.
Yeah, and I this course, now that I think about it, kind of reminds me of the Zozo setup a little bit, where you kind of shape some 3 woods off the tee, a lot of wedge games and reachable par 5s, right? So that's kind of like his style there. Is even if he doesn't go for a lot of par 5s, he's such a solid wedge player that you're going to see throughout my picks. That's the same angle I'm taking, right? So kind of interesting, both of us taking someone towards the top, which we never do. Yeah. But it's an interesting setup for some of these guys from the medium range. Yeah, I thought I would like Finau this week, moving a little bit further down. I'm seeing like 28 or 30-1, and then I got to looking. My numbers don't necessarily love him too much. This week, more of like a longer iron player, I guess. But he's also like missed 3 or 4 consecutive cuts here. Maybe the party atmosphere is in.
Yeah, no, and there's a little bit of a narrative that for this week as well. So he was actually originally signed up to play in the European Tour event, the Saudi International, and backed out of that because he's basically moving his family to Arizona. So I don't know how focused he's going to be moving. He's literally moving his family right now and then playing the event. So you combine that with the fact that he's missed I think the last 4 cuts here. So for a guy who usually misses a handful of cuts a year to miss 4 cuts in a row on a course is we'll call it interesting to say the least, right?
Especially playing well last week.
Yeah. So I'm not entirely sold on Finau this week. Yeah, it's very likely. I mean, that we may see a less than stellar performance this week.
So let's move further up. We'll look at, this medium range, Bubba Watson, Gary Woodland, Morikawa, Snedeker, Brendan Grace finished 2nd last year. Anyone from the 30s to 40s to 1 that you're looking at?
Yeah, my other 2 players are both in this range. First one's going to be Colin Morikawa at 40-1. It's just too high of a number for a guy who is, not say destined for stardom, but is going to be one of the guys we're going to see winning 1 or 2 times on the PGA Tour every year for the next 10 years. He's an elite iron player. Honestly, one of the best in the field. Kind of reminds me a little bit in terms of Hideki, in terms of his iron play, to where when he hits it, when he's hitting it good, he's just absolutely just sticking it. And then it looks like he hit a bad shot and it's 15 feet. So he's going to be giving himself a lot of chances for birdie this week. And also, he keeps it fairly accurate off the tee, too. So you combine those two things, and I don't see how he's not going to be at the top of the board this week on Sunday.
I'm on him too. I got 35-1, Morikawa. I actually have him as the best approach player in the field this week.
So likewise, yep.
When you look at this field, it's quite good. The Phoenix Open has been getting better and better and better field-wise. You got Rahm, Thomas, Simpson, Matsuyama, Fowler, Schauffele's here. DeChambeau came back from overseas. So you're talking about a pretty good field, Finau, Watson, Woodland, and Kuchar. But Morikawa, the best iron player this week, 22nd in driving. Like I said, I'm going to have an emphasis on accuracy this week. He's hit 2/3 of his fairways this year. Not overly long by any means, smaller guy, right? But you don't need to be here necessarily. Again, another guy that I'm going to feel like an idiot when he finally putts on the weekend. He's losing strokes putting and losing strokes on approach, and his finishes are so good. Top 10, top 20 almost every single week. Well, last 3 weeks, the 7th, 21st, and 21st. This course, I think, fits him more than any course that they're going to play all year, probably more than any course he's played yet. I bet him at 35-1. I'm right there with you, and let's hope he gains some strokes on the greens this week. And I think he can. I think he will eventually, and when he does, he's going to win.
Yep. So who's your next player off the board then?
Yeah. So further down, I'm taking Hovland at 55-1. Hovland last year on the PGA Tour didn't qualify for a lot of the stats, but it's 75% of the fairways he played. He's pretty long. I have him in 6th in the field on approach. Granted, I will say I think a lot of his approach value comes from longer iron play, but with his driving accuracy and length, another guy that if he plays a little bit better around the greens, I think he's going to win. I don't think he got a win last year, but he was finishing high up routinely every week towards the end of the year. If I look here, he had T12 and then a T54, but then he went 13, 13, 6, and 4th to finish the year. The only thing that concerns me with him, obviously coming back from overseas, he wasn't great over there, but those are particular events, but at 55-1, it just seems a little bit crazy that he's that high given his skill set.
Yeah, but I mean, to me, he's a stay away for me this week in terms of the outright market. Talking about the travel coming back from overseas, and also the fact that the last 2 weeks over there, he was playing desert courses. And once again, you're in a desert course here. I'm not saying there's similar courses, but like there's at least a small corollary there. And when we saw Hovland play last year in the PGA Tour, he was Mr. top 15 machine, right? He was just finishing 8th, 6th, 10th. He set the record for most rounds in a row under par or something like that for a rookie.
In the 60s, I think. In the 60s, he had like 23
right?
rounds.
And now all of a sudden he goes miscut in 23rd over there in Europe. So I mean, I don't know if that's rust or maybe swing changes or something like that. It just seemed a bit off to me, and I kind of want to have my money on him when I see a little bit of a positive uptick in his stats for toss some money. But with that being said, he's getting a good enough number where in this field, it wouldn't surprise me if he's up there.
If he needs to hit 75% of his fairways, right? Because he needs to be on the green, I think. He's an okay putter. I don't think he's necessarily going to putt the lights out like I would expect like Webb Simpson to do this week. But I think as long as he's hitting the fairways, he's going to hit the greens. The problem is if he hits 65% of his fairways instead of 70 or 75% of the fairways, I think he might struggle a little bit, chiefly because his sand saves and his chip shots and stuff just aren't very good. He's very much a brute, which isn't necessarily what you want this week, but I will say, he hit 75% of his fairways last year.
Yeah, I mean, but it's one of those where, to me, hitting fairways is just way overrated, especially on this course, too. To me, it's can you keep the ball on the planet? Because pretty much all the holes there's a decent-sized fairway, and you got 15, 20 yards of rough, and then it's desert. So if you can just keep it in play and in the fairway or rough there, and then, obviously if you get one way offline, you're going to be in the desert, and you need a little bit of help there to get a good lie. but it's not one where you have to actually have a stripe show to hit every fairway, because the rough's usually not terrible here. Just because the time of the year, it's not overly juicy.
Well, yeah, and the only thing you're getting in trouble is if you're in a bush in the desert. You know, you end up in a bush somewhere. But I don't necessarily mean for everybody, but for him, because his game out off the fairway and even just off the green isn't very good, I feel like he's going to need to hit a lot of fairways, which he can. But at 55, it just seems like a good number for one of the better players in the world right now, I think.
I guess we'll just agree to disagree on the fairway notion there, I guess. Then. All right, so moving on to the next play. For me, my last play is going to be Gary Woodland at 30-1. To me, this number is a gift after his performance last week. So Woodland missed the cut last week at the Torrey, very unlike him, mostly due to bunker struggles I think he had on the 14th hole on the south course in the first two rounds there. I think he made like a triple or a quad from a greenside bunker, where he bladed one over into the ravine or something like that. So his week was kind of done at that point. If he just made the cut, let's say finished 20th last week, his number this week would have been like 20-1, and there wouldn't have been any value. And that's pretty much what I think that number should be, is 21. I'm getting 30. I'm playing it. Woodland's past champion here. Finished 7th last year. Won the year before. His game suits it very well to where, on courses where he isn't forced to hit driver, right? He can hit 3-wood or even driving irons off the tee and kind of just keep it in play there and leave yourself, that mid to short iron distance. That's where he's had success. We've seen that happen at, let's say, in Innsbruck and Tampa, right, where he always plays well, right? It's a course where you don't have to hit driver. It's not overly long, but you have a lot of shots from that middle range there. And he just kind of hits the greens and gives himself some putts. And the last 2 years, once he kind of made some changes to his putting, he's become, used to be one of the worst putters on tour, and now he's a serviceable putter. To where if he catches his hot putting week, he can, definitely win. We saw him win the U.S. Open last year, right? Because guess what? He played it smart, laid up to the numbers he was comfortable with off the tee, hit the greens in the correct spots, and made some putts.
Yeah, it's fascinating to see him on shorter courses, how good he is, hitting that stinging 2-iron off the tee, some stinging 3-woods. It is fascinating to see how good he is at a place like Pebble, that plays short, a place like this. What was the other place? Innisbrook is the other one that plays. It is fascinating to see, and again, it just comes down to him putting. Like, is he going to putt good enough on the weekend to win? And if he does, he's going to have a chance. He's going to be top 5 if he putts. If he just gains a little bit putting, he can win this week easily. He has won here. He's made up huge ground 2 years ago, like you said, and I did bet him 2 years ago on that win. So you're not taking any long shots.
Nope. My allotment for amount towards outrights was going to those three guys. It's playing slightly higher amount than I normally would on an outright. There's just such a large edge on these three guys in comparison to the rest of the market for me that I kind of couldn't leave one of them out. So I'm playing about 10 to 15% higher amount this week on outrights than I would in a normal week, which isn't really that much, but it's at least mentionable. So
my last guy, I have a few longer guys at 80-1, but my biggest guy I'm taking this week is Tom Hoge at 100-1. It's not necessarily, at 100-1, you're wishing, right? You're just hoping for something. Not a great driver of the ball. He kind of struggled over the weekend at Torrey, but he off the tee, but he made up for it. He had a good finish last week in his last 3 events: T12, T6, and a 5th against some pretty good fields too. I'm going to take a flyer on Hoge at 100-1. He's 9th on approach in his 22 rounds this year. So, over a stroked gain, tee to green, pretty good putter so far this year. Obviously not a guy that with a lot of win equity, but 100-1, that's what you're kind of hoping for, right? Like, you're just hoping that, that something goes right. Maybe he pulls a Leishman and gains a bunch of strokes putting over the weekend, and we'll see. But I have him as the fourth in the field on approach this week. Everything else is pretty average. But like we said, from that medium approach play. Maybe he sticks a bunch close and makes a couple putts and has a chance on Sunday. Never know. Maybe you have some hedge options, down the stretch, but 100-1, you're not going to get, quality golfer, but he's trending in the right direction after missing a bunch of cuts this year. So yeah, we'll take a flyer on Hoagie.
Yeah, and if you want to see the rest of Frank's betting card or see any of our other bets, it's all available on EliteSportsBetting.com. We have packages for daily, weekly, monthly, or annual for whatever sport you want, or for all inclusive like a VIP membership. So like on the golf side, Frank posts his outrights and top 20s and some head-to-heads. I post the same as well, and then also some additional bets such as like head-to-heads, free round, and stuff like that. And that's where you can find all the information. So later in the week we'll have our head-to-head matchup stuff and stuff like that. Was there anything that popped off right away for you, Frank, in terms of like a top 20 you're playing you want to give the viewers or anything like that?
I didn't see any top 20s quite yet. I don't particularly like the bottom of the board too much this week. The field's a little stronger than we've seen in previous years here, so I'm not that excited to play here. The only there was maybe like 10 or 12 head-to-heads that actually got posted up so far. So I've added a few. I think I had 3 or 4 up on the package. I'll give one here. I've got a small edge with Zach Johnson against JB Holmes this week, minus 115. That's about the number I would play, maybe like minus 116. Yeah, minus 116 is the worst I would play. I think this is another course that just fits Zach Johnson, keeps the ball in play, not an overly long hitter. I think JB might get a little bit wild on this course. They're pretty close players. I think maybe we're just getting a slightly better number because JB played well last week at a course that he does and has played well at historically. So maybe a little bit better number on ZJ this week than what we would normally see against JB.
But is this a course where JB plays well also, right? I mean, that's why it has me a little hesitant there, considering he's won twice at this place, right? 2006, 2008, he's won here.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't put a lot of stock in course history. I haven't found. It's something I want to pay attention to, but it's not necessarily something that I found to be very predictive from a modeling perspective, unless there's a standout reason like Torrey Pines 7,800 yards. Well, driving distance is more of a constant than probably any other stat in golf, obviously, because if you can swing it X miles per hour, it's going to go further. So other than driving distance, I haven't found a lot of course history mattering too much unless there's a specific category that suits, a 7,800 yard course or something like that.
Yeah, then that's kind of where we differ a little bit, and that's why the interesting thing is on Substance all this time is like we'll be on different players or different people just because we have 2 different ways of approaching things. Yours is a little more model based, mine's a little more golf based, but a little less data based and more analytical based on the players and their tendencies and the way that they like certain shots or certain kind of like last week we talked about like Leishman liking Torrey because he has a certain grass type he has. He hits a high fade. He has the apex, the high iron, and stuff like that. So that's why we kind of make a good combination because and whenever we get a player where we both like, it usually leads to very good things. So
go Morikawa this week.
Exactly right. So anything else you want to mention before we head out here?
No, that's it. I'll have everything up on the bet package this week. It's a little bit thin right now. I have a little more outrights than what I normally would have because the matchups are pretty thin for me this week. So I could add some top 20s and stuff. I'm going to stay on the lookout for those. But everything will be up, on EliteSportsBetting.com as we get going. And like I said, these aren't all of my outrights, what I said today. So I'll have a few more up there that you might not want to miss.
All right. This has been another edition of the Up and Down, and we will see you guys next week.